Our next speaker. We're really excited to have him here with us today. Raul Panchal has been oil painting since he was 7 years old and has been playing around on Photoshop since he was 15. He illustrated a book when he was just 16 and took his passion for art and business and turned it into his successful career. Wow, this is amazing. How many of you are interested in design, art, Photoshop? Okay, great. Let me see you get up on your feet. Give him a proper leap welcome, Raul Panchal.
Hey, that's me. Hi. Hey, all the people interested in design, could you raise your hands again, just so I can? Wow, that's a lot of people. That's almost a quarter of you guys. That's cool. Okay. So this will be cool. I didn't think anyone would be into design, so I didn't really set up for that. But anyway, this talk is called "How to Make Your Logo," and you guys are doing Leap. You guys are getting all these great messages from guys like Anthony Hopkins and Mark Wahlberg. So you guys, you have the tools to like bring any idea you have in your head. You can bring that to the world now. You guys are learning amazing stuff and what it takes to, interface with business and bring your ideas to life. So this talk is really relevant for that. We've been on this planet for a long time, and the asteroids haven't hit us yet. And we started off as cavemen, and right, we used to live in caves and all that good stuff. But anyway, this picture on up here, this is the first cave painting that we've been able to find. It's the first time people have made an imprint of themselves on the world, right? So this is like a deep thing inside of us that we want to like show the world who we are. We want to show people where we've been and things like that. So, I don't know where we get this notion from inside of us. Maybe it's, I don't know. Anyway, so we we eventually made hieroglyphics. Everyone know what hieroglyphics are? Egyptian stuff. So these hieroglyphics, they're basically the same thing as emojis. They just kind of explain, like you can see, bird, I've got a bowl of food, right? Same thing. We do this all the time. So our brains are wired to understand symbols, right? So, even our letters in our alphabet, they're based on symbols originally. So every letter in the alphabet was originally an emoji back in the day. So letter A represented a bull's head, right? The letter D was originally from doors when we all used to live in hobbit holes. The letter H is from fences. And so anyway, letters evolved into the full set, right? Like the set has changed over the last 100 years or whatever, but we went from having old fancy letters like this to in the roaring 20s during the Great Gatsby times, letters started to look like this, and now today they look kind of like this, right? This is a joke. All right, so that's the whole background on that's like graphic design in a nutshell. But the thing that makes a logo really work and perform is what I like to call is it has a story and it has a promise. I'm sure a lot of you guys know someone and they, or a company or something, and their letter is just, or their logo is just a letter with some like shapes on it, but it doesn't really say much. It's just like, okay, your name is Nick and your logo is an N with like a check mark on it, right? Like that doesn't really do much. So how do we get story and promise into your design, right? So first you got to understand, like, for the story to work, right? Your customer, if you're starting a company or you have an idea or you want to be a yoga teacher or you want to be a designer, right? Your customer is the hero of your company's story, right? So like that thing up there on the wall, it says treat others the way they want to be treated. So your logo is not necessarily for you, it's for your customer because you want to treat them the way they want to be treated. And then a really, really powerful logos, the ones that are really successful, they they, you know, they show the customer what's trustable about you, what the customer can rely on with what you're giving them, right? So like I show these examples from Iron Man, right? So this imagine all your customers, they think that they're Iron Man, right? So they're going through some challenge in life and they're trapped in that cave. You guys all saw Iron Man 1, right? Okay, cool. So you know, he's going through that really hard time in his life where he has to figure out how to get out of there. He's got shrapnel in his chest. So he invents this suit, and the suit not only saves his life, but it gets him out of this bad situation, right? But then when he gets home, he still has to keep working on this suit and get better stuff and better tools and better magnets to get the thing out of his chest even better, right? So that's exactly what everyone is looking for, right? So if you're able to get out of your own head and get into like what you can do for your customers, your company is gonna, you know, serve your customers in some way. And then when you create something that serves people really well and you're able to communicate it really well, you're able to be wildly successful. So this is the most recent National Geographic cover. And I love this because it's really strong with its story and promise. So, you know, you guys know the Titanic story, the iceberg sinks the ship, right? So obviously that's not an iceberg, it's a big plastic bag floating in the ocean, right? So it's this beautiful poster design that explains the story of plastic being bad for our planet. But the really cool thing about this is the promise. So National Geographic, for the last 50 years or whatever, has been mailing out their magazines in a little plastic baggie. And you get the thing in the mail, you open the bag, you throw the bag away, the bag ends up in the ocean, right? So with this issue, they didn't mail it out in a plastic bag, and they decided to stop mailing things out in plastic bags moving forward. So that's millions of plastic bags that aren't being made anymore, just because these guys decided to, you know, take that action in the world. So a beautiful example of that. Another thing that I found really interesting, so all the tech companies have their own version of the emoji set, right? So Apple has their really cool kind of Pixar-looking emojis. Twitter has their really basic emojis. But if you look, in 2013, all the emojis, you know, for that particular icon were one way, and if you look at 2018, now they're all water pistols, right? I think that's, you know, interesting. You know, it's kind of like censorship, but it's also fun, you know? So anyway, let's get into logo design. Now we got all the background stuff covered. So this animation is just showing like someone actually doing the computer stuff to make a logo happen, and you know, any of you guys doing design here, you know what they're doing. But it's not about like the idea for a logo is not just the shape or whatever. It's you got to get into this. There's three major steps, right? So there's your identity, and it's cool. A lot of the stuff Anthony talked about had to do with identity. Then there's your form, and the form is like just kind of like the energy of the shapes, and we'll get all into that. And then there's texture and color. Like what can texture and color do to inform and create those feelings you want to generate? So identity, right? Like what's that? Like let's forget that we're all thinking about starting our company or branding our company or whatever. Just think about, you know, like who am I, right? Like Anthony, he's somebody, like from a little kid, he was like a born actor. And then he found himself in a little play, and then he, you know, so his whole life purpose, right? His raison d'etre, remember he even said that. His reason for existence is this like creation, right? Acting, all this stuff, right? So in Eastern cultures, they have this term called svabhava. It's like the intrinsic of being, right? So you can be born one way, you develop, and then you grow, and you become, and then you die, right? But, you know, just because you're a born artist doesn't mean you'll go be a successful artist. You have to actually train and do it and get in there. So now pull out of yourself, and let's get back to thinking about your company, right? Like you have this idea for something, right? You want to be a yoga teacher, you want to be whatever. You have to develop that. You have to create it. So a big way to look into that is just figure out what's the problem your business solves. What's the thing your customer needs that your company, you know, fixes? Like Dr. Bill, he did a great job figuring out how to whiten everybody's teeth on Earth, right? So let's look at Apple. Apple's awesome. So back in the day, before Apple Computer, was what it is today. Like today, Apple's the biggest company on the planet. They have $1 trillion valuation. They're the biggest company, hands down. But back in the early 80s, if you were a person using a computer, you were a scientist. You were in a lab environment, and a computer was like something that only really technical people were doing. It wasn't something that everyone had in their pocket, right? So, Steve Jobs' vision was to make computers into something really simple and really easy, like an Apple, right? And then, I don't know, if anyone has like a little brother or sister or something, or, you can just hand them an iPhone or an iPad, and they know how to use it right away, right? So that's the same thing with an Apple. If you hand a kid an Apple, they can just bite it, and suddenly they're using it, right? So, they did something really smart. They got their story and their promise baked into their logo, instead of making their logo like an icon of a computer, because then when they come out with the iPod, then they have to change their logo to an iPod. That's something my company does a lot, is people start with a logo that's their product, but then they realize they're a lot more than just their product. So we got to help them get to something deeper and also something bigger. Also, this is crazy. There are an unbelievable amount of people with the Apple logo tattooed on their body. And I got really curious about this. Like, what is that? You should know, I don't encourage anyone to get the Apple logo tattooed on their body. I think it's a bad idea. But it's like I feel like if you don't have like a strong sense of self, and you see a strong identity somewhere else, there's like a desire to connect with that somehow. So anyway, I just found that really interesting. Form, right? So this is the next step in what we're talking about. So the next part of your logo is your form. So let's just get to the real basics of just geometry, right? Like form is geometry. So triangle, right? That's like a mountain. If you look at it, it's like on the bottom, it's very anchored. It's very bottom heavy, like it's impossible to move or tip over, right? Look at this guy. Look at the way he's standing. He's not going anywhere unless you push him really hard. But then what happens if you flip the triangle over, right? Does that thing look balanced? Is that easy to tip over, right? So I found this really interesting, right? Like the energetics behind having a small base and a big top. Like, so look at the Guess logo, right? It's an upside down pyramid. But then, like, if you wear high heels, you stand on your toes, right? You get more delicate, right? So that's good in some cases. So if your company is something, about change or femininity or something like that, use a narrow bottom and almost like a flower too, right? Like even like a rose looks like that. Like it's got a stem and then it gets big at the top. So we're just talking about the just basic like energetic dynamics of shapes right now. We're not, okay. So anyway, like when you see a circle, what does that really imply, right? So it's like a complete system, right? Like on Earth, we have a water cycle, we have clouds, the same clouds that go over China eventually come over here, right? It's all one thing. Everything's recycling and moving. There's no, exit, right? So circles, if you make your logo a circle, it's like a lot of companies that use circle logos are like a complete system. Like think AT&T, right? They get all your stuff covered. But what happens when you stretch a circle? When you stretch it, it becomes like fertile, right? It becomes like an egg. When you stretch it sideways, right? What does that look like? That looks like an orbit of a planet. This is probably the most overused shape in logos because all companies want to say that they have a lot of integrity and they're perfect, right? So a lot of car companies, a lot of speed-related, motorcycle companies, things like that, use that shape. Cool thing about squares, they're also building blocks, right? And if you stretch a square tall, you get to make taller things. If you stretch a square horizontal, it's more of like a foundation. So when you see logos doing square stuff, it's like the company wants to be a building block in your life. Like think about Gap. Like you can go there for, they're like a building block for your clothes. The BBC, if you live in the UK or something, the BBC is like your foundation for news. Home Depot, right? It's a building block. I mean, you can actually buy building blocks at Home Depot and build your house. So you don't have to limit your ideas and thinking to just geometric shapes. There's all kinds of shapes, and everything has like a meaning, and you can find that out. So I just also want to talk about like the shape of the rabbit. I thought this was interesting because they bounce around, they're fun. So all these companies that or products that are quick, right? TaskRabbit, they come and they knock out the task and then they leave. GTI, the Volkswagen Rabbit, it's a fast little car. So that's fun. This one's really interesting. So crocodiles, what do crocodiles symbolize? I don't know what they symbolize. I researched it. I encourage you all to just go on Google and type in crocodile symbolism. It's really interesting because it's like this, like you can go underwater, it's ancient, right? But a lot of weird men's fashion uses crocodiles on their logos, or a lot of anyway, I haven't figured that out. Unicorns. Unicorns are really cool. Have you guys seen the Squatty Potty commercial? And there's all these like bathroom products that use unicorns in their commercials because it's like, you'll poop like magic, So I was thinking, like, what would happen if the unicorn, if because unicorns, they symbolize like outstanding results, right? Like beyond expected. So like if you had a tech company, some tech platform, could their unicorn look like, could their logo look like that if they were like this out of control, amazing tech company? Or if you had like a race car that could go faster than light or something, could that be the logo for it? Or, anyway, these are kind of funny. So I was just playing around with unicorns and just saying, like, how can the same animal, how can it play in all these different ways, right? So that's leading us into my favorite part, texture and color, right? So once you have your form down and you know what you want it to look like, then you got to figure out, okay, how do you want this thing to feel with people, So again, back to the old Apple logo. So back in the day, Apple wanted to show the world that their computer could display colors, because back then computers only had one color, it was like green. And so they made their logo like this to show colors were on here now. I think that's so funny. Then they turned all their computers into these big candy. Have you guys ever seen these old Apple computers? They look like big pieces of candy. They're huge. Anyway, so they made their logo look like candy too. Then they got more serious, right? Then they started working with steel and aluminum, right? They got really tough. So that's their logo today. So let's just look at different textures, right? Like this texture feels like really rugged, really tough, right? So like if Apple made some kind of like tough computer, it could be like that, right? How's this feel? This feels really like warm, handcrafted, right? Like if you want to get a handmade computer, it'd be like that. Right, but see how much the texture just changes everything? Like, this could be maybe from the movie Frozen. It's not, but it could be. This was something we actually used on a Coke ad to make it look like the Coke can was frozen. So anyway, if your computer was liquid or like cooled, so you could max out the processor or something. Does anyone know what this stuff is? Yeah. So does that make sense with the Apple logo? No, yeah. What about like, some cool Rust thing? This could be for some like Affliction t-shirt or something like that. Apple logo? No, it's not gonna work. What about fuzzy? Soft and fuzzy? No? Okay. What about glitter? Yeah. That would be cool. Imagine if they put out like a limited edition glitter iPod. That would be cool. She's smiling a lot. Yeah. People would pay for it, though, I think. What about Unikitty? Yes. Okay. So let's get into like the, like colors. Colors are colors are amazing, right? Like, it's not just a color. When you see something blue. So imagine back in the day, right? Like before we had cities and before we had all this stuff, pretty much all people lived on the coasts, right? like deep in your DNA, like deep, deep, deep inside you. Colors really work on you in a deep cellular level, right? Like blue light literally wakes you up. You know how they have night shift on your phone to get the blue light to stop? Because if you look at blue light, it makes your body think it needs to be awake. It literally turns your cells on. Because when the sky is blue, you need to, go find food or something. So, but look at this picture. So, if you're out at sea or you're on a beach or something, when you look down, the whole ocean is blue. When you look up, the whole sky is blue. Like, life is blue, right? So companies that want to show that they're like trustworthy, you can relax, everything's as it should be, there's no storm, right? Everything's cool. They use blue. And even if you have read the Iliad or the Odyssey, these really old classic books, they don't ever mention the word blue. But these books take place on ships, and they're looking at the sky and they're looking at the water all the time, and they're always talking about it. But they never talk about the word blue because our language hadn't separated from Earth enough to have the word blue. So blue is like anyway, it's a really interesting thing, blue. Apple uses blue. So another really cool, like kind of foundational color is green. Green is everywhere. It's grass, it's trees, it's leaves, it's, a big part of our life, farming, all that kind of stuff. So if you want, I love Whole Foods uses green, right? Because it makes a ton of sense. You get organic food there. Girl Scouts uses green, right? Because you're going to grow being a Girl Scout. Leap uses green, right? Because you're going to grow here. I think it's funny that Android uses green. I don't know why, but they use kind of like a yellow green because it's like future-ish. But I don't know what to do with that, but I like it. So yellow's really cool too. So fun, light, energetic, right? So if you want your company to be like a fun company, make it yellow. Like look at the Ferrari logo, like that's pretty fun. Snapchat, that's fun. Orange is cool. So like orange is that like color of like right in the morning, like when the sun first comes up, it's kind of like this party, the beginning of the day, right? So it's like you wake up from, sleeping all night and like basically being like pretend dead, and like you get to burst into life, right? So orange is this like I love that Fanta and Crush, like orange soda. I think orange soda's cool. And then red, right? Red is the color of blood, So red is the first color, like if you go back in language and stuff, red is the first color we talk about. And red is the first color babies are able to see when they're, within the first month, babies can see red. They can't really make out the other colors. So red is this very like visceral, primal color for us. So if you're doing something that is very stimulating or, like stop signs are red, right? Like you got to stop. Red lights are red. So red is this very like attention-grabbing color. Pink. Pink is interesting because pink isn't actually a color. Pink is just light red, right? So it's like relaxed red. So anyway, I think it's cool. And then purple. Purple's totally sweet. So like think about times in nature, like just forget like that you have paint and TVs and stuff, but just think like when you're in nature, when you would actually see purple. And purple is like when something weird's going on. There's like a storm or moody or, there's lightning, right? So purple is this very mysterious thing. And it was also used a lot in like creating really like in Imperial Japan, only the emperor could use the color purple on stuff because it was for like super quality things. So there's something interesting there. So everybody get your notebooks out. This is the interactive part. So is anybody here like coming up with an idea for a company or anything like that? Wow. Okay, cool. So think about your company, right? If you're not thinking about starting a company or anything, just think about yourself. Like think there's something you know better than anyone else. There's some kind of wisdom you have that everyone could learn from you. It could be anything, right? Like maybe you're the best at putting on makeup. You know, I mean, like on YouTube, there's so many people teaching so many things, right? You could be totally awesome at grooming your goatee to look sweet. You might be the best at dyeing your hair pink. Whatever it is. Or maybe you want to help, lots of people and you have a company idea. So how do you help your customer? First, think about that and just kind of write it down. It might not be an immediate thing, but try, just try to make it an immediate thing. Like, what is it you do that helps your customer? Next, what is it about you or your company that customers should trust? Like, why you? Like, should people trust you to teach them how to trim their goatee because your goatee looks awesome? Or because you shave your friend's goatee or something? I don't know. You just gotta have some proof, right? And then think about how you want people to feel. Do you want people to be really serious when they see your logo? Do you want people to get like that when they see your logo? Do you want people to feel happy? Do you want people to feel energized? Do you want people to feel relaxed, right? So back to that first slide, right? So our identity, form, and purpose, story, and promise, right? So that thing you want to do, whatever it is your company does, that's your purpose. Then your story, right? So is this going to help you grow? So make it kind of like a tall shape. Is this something that's going to give you a foundation? That's like more of a triangle. Is this a complete package? That's more of a circle. Is this something that's going to be fast and easy? Maybe that's a rabbit, right? And then what color do you want this to be, right? Like, is it going to help you grow? Maybe that's green. Is it something that's just like very exciting, so maybe that's red. So I'm going to run you through some stuff I've done, fun stuff. So this was a drink called Prometheus Springs, and the drink was spicy. So when you drink it, it would burn your throat, and it was organic. It sold nationally in Whole Foods. And so we made the logo this scary dragon eating its tail, right? And it's also that same like Swabhava raison d'etre thing. So we had this whole thing on the website about how this little piece of you needs to burn off every day for the rest of you to grow. And just that's what the purpose of the drink was, to kind of give you a little kick in the pants every day. So we made this logo, and it had all this story and promise baked into it. Even the symbol in the middle, it's the alchemy symbol for fire and the alchemy symbol for water. So it was basically like fire water, right? It burned. And what? People got tattoos of the logo. It was cool, right? It worked. So don't get tattoos of the logo. Okay, cool. Hey, take my chair. This is another company, Big Data Group. So when I first met these guys, they took like 3 hours the first meeting and then like 2 hours the next meeting to explain to me all this stuff about how they set up data this and how they gather data from all over your company. These guys work with giant companies. They work with like the government and the CIA and stuff like that. And I was like, wait, so basically you just get a lot of data and you do something to it and you make it into useful information? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll be back. Let's talk in a couple weeks. And so I brought them this logo. And so now when they start their meetings off like this, it saves them hours and hours and hours. So every time they do a sales meeting or something, they don't have to explain that they get all your data and turn it into something useful. They just look at the logo and it moves, right? People get it right away. So this logo's really changed their business. So you guys know Nikes. Nikes are for just doing it. This shoe company is called Time, and it's about taking time for high-performance relaxation, right? Remember Anthony Toppins? He was talking about slow down, take a deep breath, figure out what you're really into, right? So these are meditation shoes, basically. They have elastic straps. They hug your feet. The leather is made out of glove leather instead of hard shoe leather, right? So when you put them on, they slide on, too. It's like putting on a sock or like a glove. It's very floppy and whatever. Even the rubber is gooey. We restructured the rubber to match the story and promise of the company. So this is a really fun product because not only did I get to do the logo and name the company, but I also got to have a heavy hand in like how the shoe actually feels on your foot. The other cool thing is, I'm really proud of this. I convinced them to make the insoles out of yoga mats. So every time you take a step, it's like doing some yoga. I thought it was cool. But you can get those. They're timeslippers.com. This logo I think is really fun. So this guy, he teaches martial arts, and he also teaches meditation. One of his clients is the CEO of Snapchat. He teaches you to cultivate that warrior spirit within yourself, to find the peace within it, right? To bring the saint and the savage together. So I thought it was really cool, kind of like philosophy he had. So we made the logo that. Does everyone see that? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So I didn't make this one. I had a client come to me with this logo. He had this juice company, and he came to me and he said, I want to make an app so people can buy they can order their juices before they get to the place, because it takes us some time to make the juices because they're also handmade and whatever. So I was like, okay, that's fine, but your logo's horrible, right? Like you're selling like organic, handmade juices, and you get all your produce from the local farmer's market, and it's like really the best stuff you could probably put in your body. I was like, why does your logo look like something that would go on like an industrial chemical thing, you know? Like I wouldn't put that in my body. So we made him this. Basically, we take fruits and veggies and squeeze it and turn it into high energy food. Thanks. So yeah, after this logo came out, he was able to raise money and expand locations, and people wanted to work for him after that. Before when he had this logo, he couldn't hire people to work in the store, which was interesting. Nobody said it was because of the logo, but when you get your story and promise baked into something, people can attach to it, right? This one I love. This is a... How do I do this? So these guys, what they do is they find up-and-coming spiritual teachers, and they train them, and they get them to start doing their events. They get them to start doing that write their books, and they turn them into like real, teachers out in the world. So this company's called Sacred. Originally, it was called Sacred Existence. So I was just kind of like interested with the play of that. That the letter S is this very like snaky, curvy, almost feminine shape, right? And existence is very like masculine. Even just as a word, it's like E is very, right? Very straight and angular, and X, right? So I was like, I want to do something with that. I like this balance of hard and soft, straight and curvy, right? So, and I also like this thing. In one of our meetings, they said they wanted their company to be like a dojo for the best spiritual teachers in the world. So I was like, that's so cool, right? So I started watching old kung fu movies and getting into dojos. Remember that scene in The Matrix where they go into the dojo and they do all the kung fu? So I was like, what would be a logo that you could see just like stamped into the, into like a cool dojo, right? So I made this. But it's basically like a big S, right? Like if you start where you would start writing a normal S and get all squiggly and wiggly, and then end where you end a normal S. That's it. This is another guy. This guy's company is called The Business Monk. So this is his business card, and then I animated it too. Yeah, thanks. What this guy does is all of his clients are like CEOs who have just gotten really focused on financial ambition, and they've kind of neglected themselves or whatever, their health or their spiritual side or whatever it is. And he helps them take, something he likes to say is there's no choice. There is no choice. Some people, they're like, okay, do I go make money or do I go to the Himalayas and meditate in an ashram, right? He says there is no choice. You got to bring those two things together. So the logo, he's always talking to me about this stuff in our first meetings to understand his company. So I took these smaller things, right, like ambition and compassion, and how do you fuse these things together to create something bigger, right? So that's what his logo is trying to explain. So when he starts talking about his philosophy and all that stuff to his clients, the logo is an easy way for them to just say, that's what we're talking about. So it's kind of like a yin-yang thing too, right? I know we talked a lot about logos, but the same thinking is really a very sharp and distilled way to think about marketing in general. So an agency I was at, Honda came to us and they said, hey, we're a Japanese company, right? And we make all these great, reliable cars, but now we're making a truck. And, you know, we're not making an F-150 and we're not making a really tough Ram with a Hemi. We're making a Honda, but it's a truck. And so we're like, okay, cool. We're going to figure out how to reshape your brand a little bit so people understand that they can buy a truck from you and it's still going to get the job done. But also we're going to showcase all these cool Japanese features that you're talking about. Anyway, I just want to show you what we did to the Honda logo, okay? This is all stop motion.
If you can dream it, you can do it. In the Ridgeline, from Honda.
So